Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Welcome to the messengers in our home. Hello, dear Kardec Radio listeners. Welcome to the messengers in our home. We've made it. Chapter 51, Saying Goodbye. The last chapter of the messengers, a journey that took us a year, but the book only 7 days. But don't worry, we're going to keep on going, so stay tuned. Hello, Mackenzie.
Hi, Francisca. Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to another and the last chapter of the messengers in our home.
And today as well, let us take a moment, elevating our thoughts to the higher spheres. Dear Mother, Father God, Creator of the universe, of everything that exists, with our hearts full of gratitude, we thank you for your love, for your justice, and all your laws, the universal laws that guide our lives. We thank you for our lives, this wonderful opportunity to learn and to grow each day. Even though sometimes the road is stony, you're always there for us. And so we ask you to please help us open our hearts and minds a little bit more in each moment of difficulty, so that the crisis doesn't last as long as the last one. And we get back up, reconnect to you, to your good messengers, the good spirits, always there, as we've been learning, especially in this book, always there to help us, waiting for us to be open for the intuition, for the inspiration, so that we can continue our journey stronger and wiser every moment. And with your permission, we now would like to start our meeting. So be it. So here we are. Enjoy the reading of chapter 51.
Chapter 51, Saying Goodbye. After numerous other spirit activities, the week of service during which Aniceto had allowed us to accompany him came to an end. We had followed our noble instructor through varied and complex tasks. Stationed at Isabel's inviting temple, we had assisted a considerable number of patients, as well as other disturbed, prostrated, corrupted, and dying brothers and sisters. Our guide had improvised wonderful resources for every case and was always attentive and optimistic. Those few days of new work had filled my mind with new thoughts and my heart with sentiments that I had not known before. In contact with Aniceto's revelations within the domains of electricity and magnetism, all my former knowledge about medicine had been reformed. The mind's ascendancy in the body's equilibrium, its radioactive forces, the field of bacteria, a broader vision of organized matter, all compelled me to sustain a new scientific concept in the art of healing infirm bodies. Above all, an understanding of the divine doctor who restores the health of the immortal spirit had developed in my soul. This extensive clarity, which now made my spirit rejoice, provided me with a deeper knowledge of Jesus. Thus, I understood that faith does not consist of an affirmation of the lips, nor of joining an established church. In the sectarian sphere, I had searched for faith in vain, in common arguments, in outward worship that changes every day. Yes, faith was a spring of living water being born spontaneously in my soul. It had been transformed into a profound reverence, allied to the highest concept of service and responsibility before the sublime bestowals of the Eternal Father. I had found a treasure inaccessible to destruction and a non-transferable asset which had been born and consolidated within me. When our instructor said it was time to go back, I definitely felt like a different person. By discovering my own inner world, I had the impression of having received the news directly from the Lord Jesus. How could I ever repay our esteemed Aniceto for such a capitalization of immortal assets? A prayer service had ended the last weekly meeting at Isidoro and Isabel's home. The ongoing work had been an arena of observations and experiences that were always new. A large number of Aniceto's friends had gathered around the instructor, eager to share in the light of the conversation and the goodbyes. Our devoted guide offered to everyone some words of encouragement, optimism, happiness, and trust in the Lord, like the prince in the legend whose mouth was an inexhaustible fountain of spiritual gold. Vicente and I had moist eyes as we wished to express to him verbally our recognition of the blessings we have received. But as we approached him, he smiled and said, "Let's thank Jesus for everything he has given us." And taking the Bible as if he wanted to focus the subject on the love of holy things, he read aloud from the 2nd chapter of Solomon's Proverbs. "My son, if you will accept my words and keep my commandments, so that you may incline your ear to wisdom and apply your heart to understanding. If you clamor for understanding and lift up your voice for knowledge. If you will seek it as silver and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God." Then he placed the sacred book on the table and commented, "Let us remember the Lord as we say farewell. Let us reaffirm our commitment to work and to bear witness, my brothers and sisters." In this short passage from Proverbs, we find many words of interest to Christian minds. To accept the divine commandments and keep them, to keep one's ear alert and one's heart enlightened, to ask for understanding and intelligence, lifting our voice above lower objectives, to seek the treasures of Christ in his plan of work. Such things represent the noble effort of one who truly desires divine wisdom. Let us not forget these duties. Since our dear friend had paused, a brother begged him to continue his interpretation of the text, but Aniceto replied in a fraternal tone, "That won't be possible right now, my brother. Other obligations are calling us from far away." And speaking particularly to Vicente and me, he added, "Since we'll be returning by the ordinary road, we can wait for our friend Isabel to give her our thanks and goodbyes." A few moments later, Isidoro's dear wife having abandoned her body to the repose of sleep, came over to us with her spirit husband in answer to Aniceto's mental invitation. He expressed his sincere gratitude to her, spoke of our happiness and the holy opportunities for service that divine benevolence had given us. Dona Isabel was moved and thanked him, showing the tears of gratitude that dominated her spirit.
Noble Aniceto,
she said, wiping her eyes,
please come back as often as possible to our humble home. Teach me patience and courage, my kind friend. If you can, don't let me stray from my motherly duties, which are so difficult to fulfill in the flesh, where unworthy interests violently collide. Support my obligations as a servant of the gospel of our Lord. Deep longings for my spirit family have rent my heart at times. I would like to take my children to the higher spheres and incline them toward the good, so that our divine union on the higher planes of life is not delayed. Homesickness for Nosolar pierces my soul, at times threatening my humble work on earth. Aniceto, please don't forget your poor and imperfect friend. I know that Isidoro follows me step by step, but he and I need friends who are strong in the faith, like you, who revive our spirits on the journey of Christian duty.
Sister Isabel could not continue because the tears had choked her voice. Aniceto, with shining and serene eyes, embraced her like a father and said gently, Isabel, continue with your testimonies and don't be afraid. We will be with you now and forever. Many admirable individuals have had duties, but let's not forget, my daughter, that Jesus experienced duty and sacrifice in the world. We shall not lack the tender care of our vigilant guide on the road to redemption. Keep your spirits up and press on. Then, looking directly at all of us, he exclaimed, Now, my brothers, help me pray. And holding Isabel and Isidoro as one in his heart, Aniceto lifted his eyes and spoke with sublime beauty. Lord, teach us to receive the blessings of service. We still do not know, beloved Jesus, how to understand the extent of the work you have entrusted to us. Enable us, O Lord, to form the conviction in our soul that the work of the world belongs to you, so that vanity will not insinuate itself into our hearts through the appearance of good. Give us, O Master, the spirit of consecration to our duties and unconcern for the results which belong to your love. Teach us to act without the fetters of the passions, so that we may recognize your holy purposes. Beloved Lord, help us to be your loyal servants. Beloved Master, grant us your instruction. Righteous Judge, lead us on straight pathways. Sublime Physician, restore our health. Compassionate Shepherd, lead us to the spring of living water. Wise Engineer, give us your blueprint. Magnanimous Administrator, inspire us in our tasks. Sower of good, teach us to cultivate the field of our soul. Divine Carpenter, help us to build our eternal home. Caring Potter, patch the vessel of our heart. Watchful Friend, be tolerant of our weaknesses. Prince of Peace, have compassion on our fragile spirits. Open our eyes and show us the highway to your kingdom. Aniceto fell silent, with moist eyes that were finding it difficult to hold back their tears of gratitude. I joined the noble caravan that would be returning with us to Nosolar. Spirit Author's Note: the citation of the Book of Proverbs was taken from chapter 2, verses 1 to 5. And tonight, as we just said, we're going to the last chapter of the book, The Messengers. Chapter 51, aptly named, Saying Goodbye. Although it will not be an eternal goodbye, it's just a temporary goodbye. And this goodbye is not even from this book, because as if you've been following us since our last year, when we studied the book No Solar, you probably already know that when we finish a book, we don't just go and move over to another book. We stay on the same book, we do a recap, we talk to some people, so who knows what's going to happen before we move on to a different book, to a different reading, to keep learning, not only with Andre, Vicente, Aniceto, but to whomever they want to present us with all these good news, with all these good interpretations of the gospel, of how to live our lives better with regards to not only our physical realm, but as well to our spiritual world, to our spiritual life. So, although the chapter is saying goodbye, and it will be a goodbye from Andre, Aniceto, and Vicente, and some other characters, some other spirits that we met, but we will stay talking about the book for at least a few more weeks, and then we will give you the good news after we finish everything to what we're going to do after we finish this book. But maybe I'm moving too fast right now in the beginning, saying all these news before we even start talking about the chapter. So let's just dive into chapter 51, saying goodbye. So last week, and the previous weeks actually, we've been following Andre's exploration on our body, right? And then we saw that he was able to see much more than with his physical or even spiritual eyes. When Aniceto touched his forehead, and he was able, Andre and Vicente, they were both able to see much more inside our divine machine. And then he was looking at this man who we saw and we met, was Fernando, and he was about to discarnate, right? To as we say more commonly, to die, but his body would stay, he would go on. And so Andre went to describe to us how that process usually goes. He describes it very briefly, but it is a very interesting way to see how that process happens. And we finalized with Aniceto telling us that we cultivate the affections that we prefer, right? And hopefully we are choosing well our affections. We are choosing well our friends, the things we get attached to in life. And he remembers one small passage from Paul in Hebrews 12, when Paul affirms that we are surrounded by this cloud of witnesses, to which Aniceto finalizes last chapter, asking us to be more careful in choosing our own witnesses. And then we finally reach the final chapter when Andre starts describing that. Well, after that, we finished the whole week of service, right? And right now we're finishing our at least our 52nd program on the messengers, in which brings us not a week, as I kept repeating through these programs, a year, right? A full year of study, of reflections, of comments, of you participating with us, sending us your questions or your comments, right, to us, to which we would like to thank you all for doing that, for encouraging us to keep going, that this program, that this show is made for us, of course, because while we are talking here, we are also learning, but also to all the ones who are listening. to learn, to try to learn together with us so that we can have better thoughts and better actions. So it was a week for Andre, but it's been a year for us following him, Vicente, Aniceto, Isabel, Isidoro, so many people, right? Ismalia, so many good spirits were here, and Fernando and all the ones who were suffering as well. And it's been such a long time that Andre wrote this that we don't even know how these spirits are. Hopefully they are back here, some of them back here on earth, helping us improve. Some of them are still there, helping, studying, and helping us from the spiritual realm. So in this week, they had a lot of stuff to do, right? We saw a few of those. Andre says from time to time that sometimes he cannot say more about it. Probably he had even more things done, but he couldn't write it here. Maybe he saved for a different time. He saved for a different book. And they were stationed at Isidoro and Isabel's home, and following Aniceto, following the spirit workers there. A lot of people, a lot of incarnate people coming in, a lot of discarnate people coming in, and they were able to learn a lot. And by they, I mean, well, everybody, but especially Vicente and Andre. And I'd like to point out here that, as we keep saying over and over again, any of these experiences or all these experiences, what we need to do when we look at them, when we read them, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of those people. Sometimes we put our shoes, we put Aniceto's shoes, right? So we really try and strive to see things as he sees. And then we put ourselves on Andre's shoes to ask questions, in Vicente's shoes, in Isabel's shoes. When we are reading books like this, we really need to embrace these characters as if they were us, right? So because they are us, because we are them in one point or another in our lives. Sometimes we are happier and we can see things clearer. Sometimes we have clouds over our heads because of, I don't know, some kind of sadness or melancholy, and then we need to try to see why such and such character were so depressed, and what did they do, how were they able to get out of their situation. So it is very important for us to really, really, really see the world through other people's eyes, so that we don't get stuck within ourselves, in our ego, in our selfishness, right? It's so easy for us to still fall prey, not to other people, but to ourselves, to our own mistakes, to our own temptations. And probably this is one of the reasons why this book is also so amazing. Andre, in the very beginning of the book, in the very first chapter, which is called Renewal, right? And we talked about renewal quite a few times. And he is very sad in the beginning. And I'm going to read just a small passage from the very first chapter, so that we make a bridge from the first chapter to the last chapter, to understand why the book is called Renewal. Well, the first chapter is called Renewal, and why I deeply and sincerely think that this book is all about service and renewal. Narcisa was talking to Andre in the very first chapter, and Andre was silently choking up, was silently tearing up, and Narcisa was sensing his tears. And then she says, she was talking to him already. She was already saying some things to him, and he was thinking, that his heart certainly was a luminous chalice, like a cup, and then he says, an empty one though, right? So she was telling him that he's been going a mental renewal, he's been going this mental transformation, but he misses something and he doesn't know what it is. And Narcissa, feeling that he has this empty chalice, she tells him, fill your chalice with the eternal waters of the one who is the divine giver. All of us, Andre, are bearers of the Christ plant within the soil of our hearts. So Narcissa tells Andre that he needs to put something inside that chalice that is empty. And what he needs to put there is the eternal waters of the one who is divine giver, right? He needs to put something there that can really fill that chalice, not temporarily, but completely and unavoidably interesting for our souls, and that will allow our seeds to grow, right? Because we are the bearers of the Christ plant within the soil of our hearts. We are carrying the plants, the seeds, right? And we need water. We need this water to make these plants grow. And on the very third chapter, on the very third paragraph of chapter 51, the last chapter, Andres says, those few days, he's referring here to the week that he's been describing, right, for us in this book. Those few days of new work had filled my mind with new thoughts and my heart with sentiments that I had not known before. So you see how connected this book is, how entrenched every little thing, every little detail is completely in touch and in par with every other chapter. So it is very important for us, these types of studies, not for us to improve our knowledge, not for us to fill our hearts with that sentiment or that feeling of, oh, I know this and I know more. No, but with the ideas, right? With new thoughts, and the heart with sentiments, with feelings of love, of understanding, and of comprehension, so that we can renew ourselves. So, and then Andre starts to describe what he learned. And it is very important to notice that he separates the next two paragraphs. In the next two paragraphs, he separates what he learned for his mind and what he learned in his soul. I mean, what he has as scientific thoughts and what he has as spiritual or moral thoughts, feelings, sentiments. First, he says that he learned a lot in the field of medicine, right? The mind's ascendancy in the body's equilibrium, the radioactive forces, the field of bacteria, a broader vision of organized matter. All this compelled him to sustain and I'm quoting, new scientific concept in the art of healing infirm bodies. So with all the way that he sees now, what he is able to see at this very moment shows him that there was at the time still a long way to come to learn how to heal infirm bodies. And he describes it as an art, right? That we have to put our effort into it. It's not just something that comes out of the press, making copies and copies and copies and copies of the same thing. No, it's art. It's unique for each individual. Of course, there are similarities, but we need to understand that the care that we give to other people, it has to be unique to that person, because that person is a unique spirit with different expressions of life, with different experiences in life, not only in this life, but also in the previous lives. He mentions magnetism, he mentions electricity, so everything was renewed, everything was reformed, as he says. But, and then he stops the physical learning, or the learning about the physical world, and then he goes on to a completely different type of renewal, the renewal of the spiritual knowledge, of the understanding of how to improve morally, actually, how much we need that improvement as well. And then he says, I'm quoting, above all, an understanding of the divine doctor who restores the health of the immortal spirit had developed in my soul. So he not only understood that we need to learn more about healing our bodies, but more than this, above all, we really need to understand the divine doctor, to understand how Jesus wants us to be healed. He wants us to have a healthy body, naturally, of course. If not, we would not be needing incarnation, right? We would not have the need to be here on earth wearing this garment, wearing this body. But he is much more interested in restoring the health of the immortal spirit, the one that we ourselves corrupted throughout the ages. And he explains to us that he also understood what faith really is, that it's not just an affirmation of the lips or joining an established church, spiritist center, temple, synagogue, whatever the name we want. Faith is not saying, I am a spiritist, I am a Christian, I am a Muslim, I am a Jew. This is not faith, at least not in the deeper sense of what faith really is, nor joining an established church. Faith is, and he uses different words for it, but I'm going to read a part that I really like here, is a profound reverence, allied to the highest concept of service and responsibility before the sublime bestowals of the Eternal Father. So this is what faith really is a spring of living water, is something that's inside of the chalice of what I really am, is allowing myself to be fulfilled by the knowledge of what Jesus came to teach us. But not only by the knowledge, not only by what I hear, not only by what I feel, but in the profound reverence of those teachings, allied to the highest concept of service and responsibility. So, faith without works, what is it? It is, according to this definition here, and according to what Jesus came to show us, is dead. So it is faith and service. It is believing. It is this reverence to the knowledge, this reverence to this Spirit who came here to show us the way. But not only to say, I believe in Jesus, I believe in this, in my religion, I believe in the prophet. It's not just saying, but doing, performing service to others, and showing with this that my faith can produce miracles of understanding, miracles of service, miracles of love, of compassion. So this is what Andre learns, and he teaches us at the very end here, him and Vicente. He is the one who is writing to us, right? But we can certainly say that him, together with Vicente, they are going through the same process. They are going together, just like Jesus told us, if you go somewhere, always go with somebody, so you have a friend to spread the word, to support you, and for you to support him at all times. So it is very interesting that Andre is together here with Vicente. So, and then Andre proceeds now to describe their last moments, because up to this moment, what Andre is doing is he is recapping what he learned during this whole week that we've been discussing. And now he starts to go right to the point where they are going back to No Solar. And he starts describing that when Aniceto said that their time there was getting close to an end, he finds himself learning that he is a different person. He feels like a different person. As we were just saying, his chalice, right, is filled with these good news, and he describes it as if he's been receiving it directly from Jesus, not from Aniceto, which is very, very interesting, because that's where everything comes from, right? At least in our world here. By that I mean Jesus, according to Emmanuel in the book On the Way to the Light, he says that Jesus is the governor, right? The one who is the responsible for this planet. So independently of who the messenger is, every great news, every good news always come from Jesus. And what Andre is telling us here is that he had the impression that although it was Aniceto who was giving him the news and who was bringing him all this knowledge, and Andre was experiencing these situations through other spirits around him, he feels as if these news were received straight from Jesus. And then he asks himself, how could I ever repay Aniceto for everything that I have received? And this should be our question, right? How could we ever repay Andre and all these good spirits for all the knowledge that they brought to us, they keep bringing to us when we read these wonderful and magnificent books, right? So it's something for us to really think about it and be ever thankful for them, being able to bring these messages to us, to be these great messengers, right? Maybe that's where the name of this book comes from, right? Who knows? So what Andre ends up doing is that, well, the last meeting that we are going to be here enjoying was finished with a prayer, and then a lot of good friends of Aniceto's join around him to share the last opportunity with him, at least as for now. And Aniceto decides to offer some words of encouragement to everybody that's there. And Vicente and him, Andre describes that they are almost crying, right? They had moist eyes, and they wanted to tell Aniceto, to thank Aniceto for what he has been doing for them. But before they could say anything, Aniceto says something to them. Aniceto says, let's thank Jesus for everything he has given us. Just like Andre did, right? And Aniceto, of course, already knew how thankful they were, so Aniceto didn't need to hear those words again. So he did what his heart told him to do. Let's thank Jesus, because he is the one who is responsible for all of this that we are receiving right now. And just like Andre describes in the previous paragraph, what Aniceto gives gives them and gave them on those meetings was like a prince, a generic prince in a fictitious legend whose mouth was an inexhaustible fountain of spiritual gold. So I was not able to find this legend that it's said here, but while checking on the original version of Portuguese, what apparently Andre wants us to think here is to have this idea, because when we think of a prince, usually it's a good prince, right? And then he says it's a good prince whose mouth had this inexhaustible fountain of spiritual gold, which he compares to what Aniceto looks like to him at that specific moment. So for Aniceto to finalize what he wants to say to all of us, he takes a Bible, and what is very, very interesting here is that he doesn't get something from the New Testament. He doesn't get a passage or a verse from the New Testament. He goes back to the Old Testament. He goes back to Solomon's Proverbs, and he reads a small passage from those Proverbs, talking about wisdom. Right? And then he makes this very, very brief comment, but very, very interesting as well. Because these days, sometimes we hear less and less talk about parts of the Old Testament that are very important. And for us, for example, let's imagine we are reading here this book called The Messengers, right? The Messengers is a book that is not part of the New Testament, right? It's not part of the Bible, right? And when we cite the Bible, we usually, as Spiritists, we cite the part that Jesus says, right? And we forget to check, at least sometimes. I wouldn't say that it would be completely necessary to be checking it all times, at all times, but it is very important to remember that when Jesus is speaking, right? When when Matthew, for example, or John, or Luke, or Mark are citing Jesus saying something, and he mentions, as the old saying goes, or as the old people would say, he is talking about the Old Testament. So Jesus is referring back to the Old Testament quite a lot when we are reading the New Testament. So it is not for us to throw the Old Testament away. With what Andre is doing here, or in this part here, what Aniceto is doing here, he is actually getting something that's very, very important for us to remember, right? Not only the words, not only these words on wisdom from Proverbs, but that the Old Testament is there for a reason, right? And we always have to remember that if not for the Old Testament, the New Testament would not be as powerful as it is. So when Aniceto finalizes his teaching, instead of getting something straight from the New Testament, he goes back to the Old Testament, and he says that we find in this short passage from Proverbs, and I'm quoting here, we find many words of interest to Christian minds. So that is as if Aniceto is actually saying, look, this is very important for us. It doesn't matter where it comes from. If it's from the Old Testament, from the New Testament, if it's from the mouth of some prince whose mouth was in an inexhaustible fountain of spiritual gold, it doesn't matter where it comes from. What matters is it for the improvement of us all? Is it for our minds to get more open to the love of our Father and to our practice of this love? So let's do it. Let's read it. Let's interpret it, and let's live by these. So he says, let us reaffirm our commitment to work and to witness, to work and to our testimonies in our daily lives. We need to testify through our actions, through our deeds in our daily lives, that we have learned how to serve how to work and how to testify that we have learned all this. And so they find, and we find, as I already read, that we find many words of interest to Christian minds. In Portuguese, the word that they use here is many verbs, referring, and I understand the translation because it's how we usually translate verb in the Bible. We translate the verb for word when we talk about Jesus, for example, or God in other passages. What is interesting here is that this word here, or the word verb, it means action, right? It's not supposed to mean like something static. It's supposed to be something dynamic, something that we need to do it. We cannot wait. We have to do it. So I highlighted some of the verbs or some of the dynamic ideas here on Aniceto's interpretation of this passage on Proverbs, when he says that we need to accept, right, and to accept and keep these commandments, right? We need to work to accept them. Why? Because sometimes we hear the commandments like honor your father and your mother, and what are we actually actively doing to honor them, right? Do not steal, right? Do not kill. What are we still stealing these days, right? What are we still killing these days, right? Moving on. To keep one's ears alert and one's heart enlightened. So we have to keep them alert and keep them enlightened. So it is not for us just to buy a lamp, put inside the heart, and leave the lamp there. No, we have to work to keep the lamp up. We have to keep checking at all times if the lamp is not fading away, so that we keep changing the oil, or we keep putting more electricity or newer lamps, and so on and so forth. Moving on, to ask for understanding and intelligence, right? To keep asking and asking questions, right? Working to understand, right? Working to raise our intelligence by doing what? Lifting our voices above lower objectives. So not getting stuck in these lower objectives only based, for example, on our material life or in our material life, but raising our objectives to a better life, a better spiritual life, to become better people, not only to our families, but to everyone surrounding ourselves. To seek the treasures of Christ in His plan of work. So all this represent the noble effort of one who truly desires divine wisdom. And he finalizes, let us not forget these duties. Seek the treasures. Lift our voices above lower objectives. Ask for understanding. Keep alert and keep enlightened. Accepting the divine commandments and keeping them within ourselves. These are our duties if we really want to have the divine wisdom of looking at things and doing the best we can when we have those things or anything in our hands. Aniceto pauses. Somebody looks at him and says, Aniceto, can you say something else, go deeper in these teachings? And Aniceto, knowing what surrounds him and what are his duties at that specific moment, he says in a fraternal tone, no, we cannot do this. Which is another very, very important teaching for all of us. Even if it's to do something that can be good, like explaining a passage deeper, there is a time for it. There is the right time for it. If we are scheduled to do something else, if we need to move on, if we need to go to a different thing, we need to learn how to say no, that this will not be possible. But, once again, in a fraternal tone. Not as if the other person is being annoying. No, in a fraternal tone. "Oh, my friend, I'm sorry, I can't. There are more pressing needs. I need to be somewhere else. We have to do something different than this. What I said is what is necessary." And don't stop from doing what we need to do next. So he turns to Vicente and Andre and say, "Well, we will be returning by the ordinary road, so we can wait for our friend Isabel to give her our thanks and goodbyes." A few minutes later, Isabel will go to sleep, and she will detach herself from the body, go to the spiritual realm, and will meet the spirits. We'll meet Aniceto, we'll see Andre, Vicente, and all the spirits who are always there helping her to perform and to do her tasks and her job as not only as the giver of time of her mediumship to the Spiritist Center, but as well her task as a devoted mother and a devoted wife, as she is. So Aniceto expresses his gratitude to her, speaks of their happiness to be there and to be able to do something and to help not only her, but all those spirits who come to her house, who come to her place to do something and to improve themselves as well. Dona Isabel is moved, of course, and thanks him back, and crying, right, showing tears of gratitude. She says, cleaning and wiping her eyes of those tears of joy, and to some degree of sadness as well, because Aniceto is going back. And here I would really like to ask Francisca to replay her reading of what Dona Isabel says, because to what I can feel by what she says, it is as if she is praying. When I read this over and over, although she is talking to Aniceto, right? And let's remember, she is an incarnate spirit, right? She's just sleeping, and her spirit, or herself as a spirit, is detached from the body, but she is still sleeping. So it's another way of us thinking of what is a prayer, right? And let's just close our eyes for 1 second and imagine that what she is saying is a prayer, and what she is saying, it would be us saying a prayer to a spirit, to our guide. So let's just hear what she says, and I'll make brief comments on what she says.
Noble Aniceto,
she said, wiping her eyes,
please come back as often as possible to our humble home. Teach me patience and courage, my kind friend. If you can, don't let me stray from my motherly duties, which are so difficult to fulfill in the flesh, where unworthy interests violently collide. Support my obligations as a servant of the gospel of our Lord. Deep longings for my spirit family have rent my heart at times. I would like to take my children to the higher spheres and incline them toward the good, so that our divine union on the higher planes of life is not delayed. Homesickness for Nosolar pierces my soul, at times threatening my humble work on earth. Aniceto, please don't forget your poor and imperfect friend. I know that Isidoro follows me step by step, but he and I need friends who are strong in the faith, like you, who revive our spirits on the journey of Christian duty.
And so why do I say that this is a prayer? Because she is not only thanking him, but she's also asking him for things, right? And, please come back as often as possible, right? Teach me something, right? Don't let me stray from my duties. It is as if she is really putting herself in the arms of this guardian angel, which in this case here is Aniceto, right? But she knows that Jesus is behind all this, right? I am a servant of the gospel of the Lord, so I have these deep longings. I miss No Solar, but please don't forget this poor imperfect friend, right? So it is a prayer, and it is a deep a feeling of this deep knowledge of what life is, but it naturally it doesn't take out our difficulties, right? By knowing this, of course it doesn't lift up all the weight that I need to carry, no, but it makes us feel stronger after that. So after she finalizes it, and we just heard it in the beautifully narrated by Francisca, she, Isabel, cannot continue because the tears had choked her voice. And Aniceto will say, Isabel, continue with your testimonies, with your witnessing, and don't be afraid. We will be with you now and forever. Remember, Jesus experienced duty just as you are. And right now, I'm talking to you who are listening to us, and I'm talking to me. Jesus experienced duty. We have duties. And Jesus also experienced sacrifices in the world. We also experience sacrifices in the world. So if Jesus is our guide and our model, and we know that He is with you, with me, now and forever, and we all have our good friends, just like Aniceto, with us now and forever, let's keep our spirits up and press on. Let's keep moving. Let's keep doing whatever we need to do to fulfill and fill our hearts with this message of love, of courage, of light, of hope, of compassion. So we have all this group of spirits here. This entire group of spirits that we don't even know how many there are there, right? We know Isabel, we know Isidoro, we know Andre, we know Vicente, we know Aniceto, we maybe Isabel's daughters and son are there. Maybe there are lots, hundreds, I don't know, tens, I don't know how many, lots of spirits there. But remember, this is a small house. This is a house that is filled with love. And then we have all these spirits around. We can have a house like this. Hopefully we already have a house like this that has its own struggles, that has its own difficulties. But if there is love, if we really have the understanding that we need to keep our spirits up and press on, following Jesus, who had duties and performed his duties, who had to sacrifice so much in his life, and he did it not only for him, but for all of us as well, what we need to do is follow Aniceto's guidelines here and keep our spirits up and press on, renewing ourselves in this process, right? With our good friends that we don't know the names. Maybe some of you know the names of your spirit guides. Maybe some of you don't, but we know that they are there. Aniceto was there for Isabel. Isidoro is there for Isabel, or was there for Isabel. Andre was there for that week. Vicente was there for that week. How many of those good spirits are surrounding us if we are really striving to renew ourselves and to do our part, and to perform our duties in our daily lives? So, Aniceto, by finalizing this, by saying this to Isabel and saying this to all of us, looks directly at all of the spirits who are there, and then he exclaims, "Now, my brothers, help me pray." And that's when he's going to say the final prayer of this book, with great reflections once again. But I'm not going to spoil this prayer by saying what I think. This prayer specifically, I think it has to be really, well, all prayers have to be really felt within ourselves. We may think about the words, think about the ideas contained in this specific prayer, but I would highly recommend you, if you can, by the end of our comments here, close your eyes, because this will be our final prayer for this program and for this journey that we've been into, reading and commenting and thinking about this great book, The Messengers. But I'm going to say this about this prayer before we go to the end, and the end of this chapter, the end of this book, our final goodbye on this, the reading and the comments on specific parts of this book. I'd like to say that once again, we just heard Isabel's quote unquote here prayer, and we hear Aniceto starting his prayer by, I would say, saying similar things to what Isabel just said. He starts by saying, "Lord, teach us to receive the blessings of service," because the blessings are there. Service is there for us. Always. It's always there. Jesus is always blessing us, always sending us good things. Our question is always, are we receiving it? Can we see it? Can we feel the blessings? Right? Because we ask Jesus for blessings in our prayers, but are we able to open our arms to receive these blessings? So Aniceto starts his prayer by, teach us to receive the blessings of service. We still do not know, beloved Jesus, how to understand the extent of the work you have entrusted to us. Let's keep working. Let's learn that it is only through work, it is only through helping our brothers and sisters, it is only going outside of our own comfort zones, of our commodities, our getting used to what I've been doing for the past centuries, that I will be able to change for the better, to do something different with my life, with my spiritual life, with my moral life, to really one day be able to fill this empty chalice that is ourselves, that we for centuries, for millennia, we decided to put stuff in there that it just decays with time. We forgot to fulfill and to fill our minds, the chalice of our souls, with the water of this eternal spring that will never leave me thirsty, as Jesus promised to the woman at the well. Drink of this water, and you will never be thirsty again. So let us fill our chalice with the water of this living spring that Jesus is. Let's follow his steps, experiencing duty and doing what we need to do, and knowing that we will have to sacrifice so many things, so many hours, if we really want to follow his guidelines, to follow his steps, to follow his way to the life and to the truth. So, with this, I would like to once again thank you very, very much for being with us, for sticking here with us every Wednesday by reading, following us, making comments, agreeing, disagreeing with some points, learning together, walking this pathway together to finally reach this point in this great book, The Messengers. And with this message of renewal, I would like to invite you all, not only now to follow us, but for you to as well become a messenger of love, a messenger of light. Wherever you go, whatever you do, may your steps be steps of light, so other people, when in darkness, can look where you stepped and see this, even if it's a small step, even if it's a small footprint, see the light there. And if we are following Jesus, it would be as if Jesus himself have stepped there. And remembering that message, footprints on the sand, maybe, and just maybe, when we are doing what is right, at that very moment, Jesus is carrying us in his arms, and our steps, our footsteps, are not ours, are his. So let's become these living letters that Paul cites, and hopefully, we will become one day worthy of being called his disciples, for loving one another just like he loves us. With this, I would like to ask Francisca to put Aniceto's prayer to finalize the program as we all go back home, just like Andre at the very last paragraph of the book says that with moist eyes that were finding it difficult to hold back tears of gratitude, he joined the noble caravan that would be returning with us, with them, to No Solar. Lord, teach us to receive the blessings of service. We still do not know, beloved Jesus, how to understand the extent of the work you have entrusted to us. Enable us, O Lord, to form the conviction in our soul that the work of the world belongs to you, so that vanity will not insinuate itself into our hearts through the appearance of good. Give us, O Master, the spirit of consecration to our duties and unconcern for the results which belong to your love. Teach us to act without the fetters of the passions, so that we may recognize your holy purposes. Beloved Lord, help us to be your loyal servants. Beloved Master, grant us your instruction. Righteous Judge, lead us on straight pathways. Sublime Physician, restore our health. Compassionate Shepherd, lead us to the spring of living water. Wise Engineer, give us your blueprint. Magnanimous Administrator, inspire us in our tasks. Sower of good, teach us to cultivate the field of our soul. Divine Carpenter, help us to build our eternal home. Caring Potter, patch the vessel of our heart. Watchful Friend, be tolerant of our weaknesses. Prince of Peace, have compassion on our fragile spirits. Open our eyes and show us the highway to your kingdom. I hope you all had a great time with us, and I hope you all have Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.